Welcome to the Stories That Shape Us, where we have conversations about how discovering your identity, enhancing your relationships, and taking risks lead to a more purposeful life. I'm Tina Morales, and I'm an associate professional counselor and master's level marriage and family therapist. In my counseling practice, I help couples move from conflict to connection so they can start to live out their relationship vision.
I'm Kiera Johnson, and I own ATL Pula Wellness Studio with the vision of giving every family the hope and freedom to live a healthier life. Through our work, we create spaces and provide resources that foster true well-being.
We came together to bring you these stories so you can collect tools and insights from those who have stepped into their power and are making an impact. Join us on the road less traveled. All right, hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Stories That Shape Us. We are your hosts. I am Tina Morales.
And I'm Kiera Johnson.
And today we have the amazing opportunity to interview the one and only Michelle Goodloe. Okay?
Hi, guys.
Yes. Quick bio about Michelle. Michelle Goodloe is a licensed clinical social worker and a published author, and owner of the Essence of Healing LLC and G. Michelle Wellness. She is also the creator of 3 self-care centered books: Self-Explore, Self-Restore, The Self-Care Investment, and I Own My Magic. Doesn't that sound amazing?
She does.
That sounds amazing. She offers busy, caring, and exhausted people the opportunity to make self-care a practical part of their lives. Michelle facilitates interactive workshops for nonprofit and private organizations that experience challenges with addressing self-care, compassion fatigue, and professional burnout. I know I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there. Michelle lives in Atlanta, Georgia, with her husband and son.
Yes.
Thank you. We're so excited to be with you. Yes.
As you guys can tell, we are in for a treat today.
Yes.
So welcome, Michelle. Thank you for being here with us.
Yes.
It's my pleasure. Thank y'all so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna dive in. We wanna hear your story. We wanna know what is maybe a story or an experience that you had that led you to be the self-care expert that you are today.
Man, let me first and foremost start by saying self-care for me and something I really like to advocate for is self-care is a journey. Sure, you can get some practices under your belt that are consistent, that are helpful, and we'll talk about this some more.
Yes.
But as we continue to grow and change and develop, so will our self-care. So will the ways that we take care of ourselves. You know? Look, let's start off right. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. My self-care journey, of course, is ongoing because I'm still learning how to take care of myself well. But I would like to say my aha moment happened when I had my very first full-time job as a social worker. I was a children's counselor for a domestic violence agency in Chicago. It was one of the best jobs I ever had for so many reasons. It was also my very first experience of professional burnout. Y'all, this was my first full-time job, and I very much underestimated my passion and dedication to this job.
Ooh.
I was at work early. I stayed late. Let me look around.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I skipped lunch.
Oh.
I didn't even know a concept of a boundary when it came to my professional roles. My work self and my personal self merged in this role. It's almost like you couldn't tell which was which. Because when I left work, I was grabbing some fast food, crashing into bed to sleep for a couple hours before getting up and doing it all over again. The first 6 months of this job, I was burnt out and I didn't even know it. It wasn't until one of my child clients in session, y'all know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
We were in session together and this child looked up at me and was concerned.
Oh.
Yeah.
This child, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This child asked me, Miss Michelle, are you okay?
Wow.
Yeah.
And instead of taking that as a moment of reflection because of my stuff,
Hmm.
I immediately felt guilty and ashamed for showing up as a distraction to this child.
Yeah.
So that was an aha moment for me on my journey to self-care, because even in that moment, I have to be so transparent here. I didn't realize, Michelle, maybe you need to take care of yourself.
Mm.
Instead, it was, look at me being a distraction because I've had a perpetual cold. This is what this child was seeing. My just bags under my eyes were deep and dark, eyes bloodshot red. My eyes are always the first to tell that it's my tell that I'm exhausted.
Oh,
It,
that's good.
I was sick just for an extended period of time because I wasn't going to the doctor. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't taking any days off. I mean, this child was seeing an adult not taking care of herself and was scared for me. And
Yeah.
so I allowed that moment to start my pivot into actually prioritizing my self care.
Mm.
Yeah. Wow.
Man, that's good. So you're even mentioning, right, like being in a place or like being like on the brink of burnout or maybe even just functioning in burnout. Um and I think that's I think we use that term a lot, this idea of like I'm burnt out. Um and I'm over here just kind of I'm going off of some of my random questions that we had questions for you, but I'm interested, like, what are maybe some signs of burnout for someone to pay attention to?
Oh yeah. What I love definitions of things.
Hmm.
So when I think about burnout, I think about the long-term feeling of exhaustion, disconnect, or disinterest from what you do full time,
Mm,
right? Time is a really big component of burnout because I haven't met anybody just yet, but say that you started a brand new job and you had a lot of feelings about it. The next day, typically you wouldn't say, I'm burnt out from this new job, right? Burnout typically happens over a period of time.
Yeah.
mm.
And I'm going to step on my little high horse and then I promise I'm going to jump off. But we are living within a society, right? Okay, I knew this was a safe space.
Yes.
I We're living in a society and within a lot of systems that perpetuate constant work, constant work, constant work. And so a lot of people are completely unaware that they're experiencing burnout or extreme levels of stress or impacts to their emotional or mental health, right? So burnout looks differently for everybody. How I like to frame it to really simplify and honestly help make it more accessible to everybody is when you notice really big changes in how you're showing up full time. So if you notice you normally are full of energy, you're excited, you're curious, you're patient. If you're the opposite of that over a period of time,
Yeah.
right? You notice you're exhausted. Again, disconnected,
Hmm.
critical of yourself and critical of others, skeptical,
Yeah.
like almost right, engaging in some pessimism. It's easy for you to find the flaws in everything. You
Absolutely.
have trouble sleeping. You're eating too much. You're not eating enough. You're
Yep.
never feeling full, never satisfied, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Again, I like to say all of those different pieces exist on the spectrum because there isn't one size fits all for burnout. It's really big changes in how you're showing up for yourself, how you're showing up for others over a period of time. And those different changes are negatively impacting what you do and how you do it.
Yeah.
Thank you for defining it because,
Yeah.
like you said, I'm glad you pointed out in your story that you didn't know yourself. And I feel like a lot of people, they get out of school, they get that first full-time job, and they get into that situation and they're crying in their car outside their office building
Yeah.
one day a year later. So thank you for
Mm.
defining it. I feel like it's going to help people
Yeah.
I
know
hope so.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say I also love how you say like noticing a change in yourself, which I also think requires to know just who you are on a regular everyday basis, right? To be able to notice
Mhm.
the change, I gotta know what's my baseline.
That that is like when folks ask me, Michelle, well, what do you recommend? Like the first thing people do for self care, build your self awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That is the foundation of a self care practice that's genuinely going to work for you. Finding some way to get to know yourself, and that's exactly why I created my first journal, Self Explore, Self Restore,
Yeah.
because right, yes, ma'am. Okay, looks good over there. It's so important. And again, I will share from my own journey. I was very disconnected from myself
Mm.
for a number of reasons. And so I had to start building and really creating compassionate space to reflect on what's going on with me. What do I need before I take care of the needs of others? And again, that's still a journey for me, but it's
Yes.
important.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
That's amazing.
So good.
Yeah.
And your talk of boundaries too, like I appreciate, like again, not something, especially if you saw your parents do it and work, and a lot of us saw it, so we did the same thing, and didn't think of those boundaries, especially when so much of the world values you by what you do. Thank you for again calling that out, because it's true. Just being anchored in those boundaries,
right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Ooh, so we could go into this question about boundaries, because I do want to get there, because I so just want to hear what you got to say about boundaries.
Yes, ma'am.
But to stay on the topic of like just defining things, how would you define self-care?
Yeah. So I have a two-parter in terms of my definition. My first really big definition of self-care is doing what you need to do to show up as your favorite version of yourself.
Two snaps.
Yes.
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 And that can look like whatever you want it to look like. Again, self-awareness is key.
Yeah.
Because how would you describe your favorite version of yourself? Is this version of yourself energetic? Is this version of yourself loving and caring? I mean, you get to fill in the blanks. Your self-care will help you show up as that person. But that's a really, really big definition, right? So I like to narrow it down a little bit by talking about your self-care practice. So a self-care practice is identifying and addressing your needs on a regular and routine basis.
Okay.
So that, right, that includes three parts. I'm going to break it down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The first piece is you need to know what you need. And again, everybody's needs are different.
Say that again.
The first part is you need to know what you need, not what's trendy.
Yes.
Not what's popular.
Yes.
Right? Not just what feels good. That's another big misconception about self-care. Right?
Michelle, hold on.
That's a big one.
Okay, hold on.
We gotta revisit that one.
She's just dropping in gems real quick.
Listen.
The gems. It's not just what feels good. Oh my goodness.
Again, because we have to come back to that definition of what self-care is. Because for you to show up as your favorite version of yourself, that doesn't just mean, and I don't like to self-care shame, but it doesn't mean just focusing on enjoyable activities.
Yeah.
You know, what folks love to talk about, getting massages, getting your nails done.
Mm-hmm.
Those are included in the self-care practice, but you want to make sure, is that all that you need?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you want to make sure you set those boundaries between your work and your personal self?
Yep.
Right? Do you need to make that consultation to the therapist?
Yep.
Do you need to go down to the wellness center at the Atlantic Station and get your
Okay. Yeah.
Okay? It's about identifying what you genuinely need. And that may take some time, and that's okay. You're worth taking the time. Right? Right? The second piece is you've got to address those needs. Okay? This is another big one. Because I can't tell you how many folks I've talked to who are like, oh yeah, I know that I need to engage in some social self-care and take care of my relationships. I know I need to examine my financial health. I know I need to set some boundaries with me and my supervisor, but they aren't doing it.
Right.
Oof.
Yeah.
It is literally like that step between awareness and execution.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
right.
it. It's necessary. It is a necessary part of your self-care. You've actually got to do the things. And then finally, this third piece, once you've identified what you need, once you've addressed what you need, right, putting it in action, you've got to do that routinely. Self-care every once in a while is just not effective.
Right.
Yeah.
You need to engage in practices on a regular basis to take care of all the parts of you so you can show up as your favorite version of yourself.
Oh, I like that.
That's awesome.
I like that too, because there's a piece of it that's like, I'm not doing it for other people. And I think a lot, where we've been at in this day and age is that self-care is a really popular term now. It's like, it's out there. People talk about it. Like you said, let me go get my nails done, or let me just, do these things that I enjoy, and they're nice, but it's not all that I need. And I like your first definition where it's like, I want to be the best version of me, right? This is truly about me, my wellness, my growth, and not about a trend, not about what someone else is doing. And then that motivates me to then take some of this action and this awareness step. I'm all about acronyms. So literally the word care, as you're saying it, what's coming to my mind, it's like consistent awareness.
Yes.
Repetitive execution.
Yeah.
That's just amazing.
That's just like what I'm
that.
of what
I
you're
love
saying.
that.
Like
Yeah.
aware and then execute.
Yep.
Oh, I like
That's the recipe. That's the recipe.
I like that. Okay. Ooh.
I'm gonna remember that. So identify, execute, repeat.
That's
Because
it.
it keeps happening. Life keeps happening. Grow circumstances. So it's important to keep the cycle going.
That's it.
I like to do that. It's not just like you said, the massage or the hike. It's the systems in your life that if you don't fix the roots, then that massage not going to help you. Just a good 30 minutes or an hour, but you go back to the same problem. So
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm looking at some of my questions, and before we even get into them, I just feel like we got to get into the boundaries, please. We need.
Yes. Let's do it.
Tell me or tell us how important are boundaries? Like, what's the relationship between boundaries and self-care?
Oh, yes. That's one of my favorite questions, Christina. I don't know if you knew that, but it is. Okay.
We need
I'd
it.
like to say, right, if self-care is the body, then boundaries are the outfit.
Okay.
Hold on. Self-care is the body. Boundaries are the outfit.
Because you need boundaries to protect your self-care practice, right?
Yes.
And we love a definition. So boundaries are the limits and expectations that you set in your relationships with others and with your relationship with yourself. Your boundaries take care of your needs, right? They take care of your needs and they help protect you and help you feel safe and balanced.
That's good.
So we need our boundaries with our self-care. I like to say they're interchangeable and they are in relationship with each other. Our boundaries protect our self-care practice, and practicing setting and maintaining boundaries is a self-care practice. They're one and the same in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So I'm repeating it again because I want to keep it. Self-care is, you said self-care is the body. Boundaries are the outfit. And for those of y'all who can't see her, she is wrapping herself up with her. So I love it.
We need them. And it's that's a part of when we look at that self-care practice definition, sometimes that's part of the execution, as y'all were saying, or addressing. Sometimes folks know exactly what they need to be doing in terms of setting those boundaries, but it's tough to do it and it's tough to maintain it.
I was just going to ask that. Like, I feel there's got to be some reasons why people don't set them. Maybe it's knowledge. Maybe it's fear. Simply lack of awareness. But
we could literally finish our conversation just listing that. There's so many reasons. So it's important to know what yours are. And like you were saying, sometimes folks don't know they have to set a boundary or maintain a boundary. Sometimes they've never done that really. When it comes to taking care of themselves, that was part of my story. I didn't realize I need to set boundaries in this stage of my life because I was a professional helper, still am. And I was like, but I love helping. Why would I want to set boundaries around this? And it took some time for me to learn. Michelle, you are not your whole job.
Yes.
You have a life outside of this work.
Yep.
So, I got a question for y'all, for folks especially who are listening and or watching. I want you to take a moment to really think about if your particular position that you do professionally or full-time, if that role were to disappear tomorrow, it's gone. It's not coming back. It's gone forever. Who are you?
Yeah.
Right?
Powerful question.
Who are you?
Yeah.
So I have been challenging myself. Again, this is a journey. I'm right there with everybody, okay? This is a journey.
Too.
I've been even just trying to introduce myself differently without immediately saying what my professional titles are.
Yes.
So I invite folks to do that. It's a wonderful icebreaker as well. Is okay, who are you outside of your position? Like, if your position didn't exist, because you weren't always a professional, right? Not
Yeah.
always. I mean, I don't know anybody who just was born and was like, "Ooh, I'm working."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You are more than what you do professionally and what you do full time. So
Right.
it's something to really consider.
Oh, I love that. I feel like that goes down to a question of of worth, of like my self-worth. Where does it come from?
Yes.
What is it? And it's interesting. This is something that I've been on lately. Like, it's just been on repeat. It's like this idea that my worth is not something that changes over time. It's something that's consistent and that can't be compared with. And that honestly is one of the harder things that I've been learning in my journey is like who I am, what I'm able to do externally does not represent the fullness of who I am internally. And so I think there's a big connection to worth that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Your worth is
Absolutely.
mine. Absolutely. Yeah, your
Oh.
worth is tied up in things that it shouldn't be, and it's gonna cause you to not have boundaries. So
Absolutely, it will.
So what would you say, because I think you mentioned it earlier, like, you know, I am helping is something that I do. Helping is something that I've now even taken on as a profession, right? And so boundaries, trying to implement boundaries when I've been a helper, right? And that's something that I'm doing. A lot of times, I think people see boundaries as like limitations in a negative way. And so I'm curious, how did you navigate implementing or starting to figure out like, okay, I need to set boundaries here in a way that was positive for you, right? Like, was it a difficult practice? Is it a difficult practice? And how do you kind of like overcome that hurdle?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I haven't overcome it. Overcame it? Overcame, past tense. Okay.
Yes.
I haven't. It still is a struggle.
Mm.
Now, I feel more confident in doing it. I understand its purpose way more, but the feeling has not gone away from me. It's still uncomfortable. So how I heard your question is this is a feeling. It feels negative. It feels wrong even. Right? So for me, when I think about the areas of my life that I've really had to take some time to set and maintain boundaries, I noticed that I felt like I was doing something wrong.
Yes.
So had to do some work around that. And I'm still doing work around that. I really want to emphasize that because I like to say I'm embracing humanness, not perfection in my life journey. And humans make mistakes and humans are progressing, okay?
Yes.
So that feeling of doing something wrong, I'm going to go back to, if folks are familiar with Dr. Brene Brown's work, I know she's a little controversial right now, but there's a couple of concepts that I think are still helpful.
Yes.
And I like the way she distinguishes guilt and shame. So how I felt it and how I heard what she was explaining, guilt feels like you're doing something wrong. Shame is identifying with the wrongness. I am wrong. I am bad. So I was feeling both. I felt like I was doing something wrong with setting boundaries and that I'm bad for setting boundaries. I'm going to disappoint others. I'm not going to show up in the same way. I won't always be available. And again, this was my journey of learning, Michelle, you don't always have to be available.
Right.
Right? And I talk about this in my book, I Own My Magic, Self-Talk for Black Women, how a lot of Black women and really a lot of women of color are taught that self-care is selfishness.
Say that again. Woo.
We're taught that self-care is selfish.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's wrong with spending some time with self?
Yeah.
Right.
again, I'm all over the place with sharing this piece, but I
Mhm.
had to do my inner work to really identify my struggles with actually creating space for boundaries so I could actually do it. And I had to practice moving through the discomfort of setting a boundary. Because that's what it is. That's what the practice is for me, is moving through it, not avoiding it, not pretending like it's not there. It's uncomfortable a
Yeah.
lot of the times for me, but man, am I worth it.
Yeah.
That reminds me of something so powerful over the last couple of years through just the civil unrest that we've experienced in this country. But at one point, someone mentioned that Black women are always described as strong. Women of color are always described as strong.
Yeah.
And they challenged that compliment as, why does she always have to be strong?
Yeah.
She's having to overcome these things, and sure, she's strong, but she shouldn't have to do that.
Yes.
So I love that you spoke to humanness and not having to be that all the time.
Yeah. Like, can we be soft sometimes? Dang.
We all the time.
Again, I wrote my last book, I Own My Magic, to really speak to that a lot more. Literally, my third chapter is breaking down the concept of Black superwomanhood, because it's a narrative so many of us have been taught and expected to uphold. But I'm like, superheroes aren't real.
Right.
Right.
Now, I enjoy a good Marvel and a good DC, but I'm saying this is a fictional role. These are characters. Why are human beings like you and me expected to do something that's fictional? Yeah. Yes, Black women are strong and we're soft.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about the and.
The
Tell
and.
us about the and.
And we're both.
Yes.
We are all the things that are human. But again, we have historical, generational, traumatic pieces that we are still impacted by to this day that also have to do with this experience of having to be strong all the time,
Yes.
Yeah.
to
Talk-
never say no,
Right.
to do all the things and do it with a smile.
Mm.
And it's like, I'm frowning. I'm tired.
Mhm.
Right.
I gotta lay down.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
It's so powerful.
It is. And I think what I like that I'm hearing you say is that, one, we're human, so kind of shifting or I want to call it shifting the expectation of ourselves to open up the door for another beautiful picture that's full. This is what I love. I love the word and, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just this or that, or it's not, this but, and like there's no negating, there's no just this or that. It's and this picture is full and it's colorful, and there's so much to the different parts of us. We are not just one thing. We are many, many parts, and we identify with many things. And this is bringing me to just like faith and spirituality. How do you connect faith and spirituality with self-care?
Yes. So I actually love just calling it spiritual self-care, the practice of taking care of your spiritual identity,
Yeah.
whatever your spiritual identity is, what it means to you. For me, I'm a Christian person who believes in God. And I've learned one of my self-care needs is making sure I'm taking care of my relationship to God.
Mm.
And our relationship it's so wonderful. And it's uncomplicated at this stage in my life. So I'm engaging in practices that support that. And again, that's just for me. That's just my spiritual needs. And that's how I identify, address, and do that on a routine basis. So for something in terms of spirituality, I like to ask folks, first of all, where are you on your spiritual journey? Again, self-awareness, right? Where are you?
Right.
Are you in a place where you feel solid about it? Do you have a lot of questions? Are you noticing some strong, heavy, stressful feelings around spiritual identity? Well, guess what? That's where you can start.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? It's just creating space for where you are right now in your spiritual journey, and whatever that looks like. It could be faith-based, it could be religious, it could be energy, it could be astrology. I mean, it's
Yeah.
what are y'all know we're going back to these definitions.
Right.
What are your self-care needs in terms of your spiritual self-care? What helps you show up as your favorite version of yourself?
I love that. It goes back to what helps you show up as your favorite version of yourself.
That's right.
I love that that's just like a very practical question to ask ourselves when we're thinking about like these different areas of self-care. And it just brings me back to, again, just the idea of like, I need to be able to check in with me.
That's it.
Like, it starts here. Check in with me. Stop being so busy. Stop trying to perform. Stop trying to like go do achieve. Pause. Check in.
That's it.
And even when we talked about not just identifying it, but first understanding, I guess that's one and the same, but understanding what the best you is.
Yes.
I've had to anchor myself in spirituality to get to those answers for me.
That's right. That's right. I literally walk folks through this in the self-care investment because I thought it was helpful to have some guides throughout. Yes, look good over there.
Just, if we have it, we're going to put it out here.
I love it. But that's part of it, right? Is sometimes folks even feel overwhelmed by thinking about that, especially if this question has never been presented to them before. And I was like, first of all, you're amongst friends because I know exactly how that feels. Okay. So I share a few prompts and a few guides to help folks really learn how to begin to self-reflect in an intentional and mindful way. Then we dive into several different types of self-care. And there are a lot. I name a few in the book.
Okay. Oh, I like that. I like that. If we could ask maybe just a couple more questions.
Yeah.
I'm really big on like practical steps, real just tangible tools that people can use and take with them. What would you say is a really practical step that someone could take today, right after they're listening to this or watching this? What would be maybe like the first just practical step to start on a self-care journey?
So my first thing, I definitely want to reiterate if you notice yourself spending a lot of energy, a lot of time, and a lot of stress in your professional role, I'm going to say again, if your professional role were to disappear tomorrow, I want you to describe who you are. That I definitely want to say that's a wonderful first starting place for professional folks, especially.
Okay.
But another piece in terms of kind of beginning your self-care practice, getting started in a practical way, I want for folks who are listening or watching, I want you to just envision who your favorite version of yourself is. Like, has there ever been a time in your life where you were shining? You were excited about life. You were excited about what you were doing. You noticed a lot of joy, satisfaction, pleasure in your life. Like, describe that person and what was going on in that person's life.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I liked, for myself, I'm like, oh, I loved when I was in grad school in Chicago. I felt like I was shining because I found my profession that I wanted to do. I had a wonderful group of friends, still have that group of friends. Hey, y'all. And, I had found my people. And I was really stepping into my adulthood, into my independence, my autonomy. And so a lot of those pieces are connected to my favorite version of myself. So that's just an example.
Yeah.
If you're like, I don't think I've ever experienced my favorite version of myself, which is okay.
I was going to ask
That's okay.
That's good. Yes.
Definitely. Then this is your opportunity to dream.
Oh, yes.
Right? Do you have any role models that you're like, man, I would love to embody some of what they got going on? Right? Is any music, art, sounds, spaces that inspire you? Include that too in your favorite version of yourself. This is your opportunity to dream.
Oh, I love that.
It's amazing.
I love that. It's like literally pull on your experiences that you've already had. What I like to call that, like, create your evidence list. Evidence
of data.
Like evidence that this exists within me. Right? This version of me that maybe I'm missing out on, this version of me maybe that I miss. right?
Mhm.
Because she was there or he was there, you know,
Yeah.
at one point. Like, go back to that person. And I love that you bring in the people who are like, maybe I don't have that version of me that I've
Yeah.
experienced yet. Now I have an opportunity to meet that person, meet that version of me. That if I can think it up, I know I can step into that and I can exist in that.
That's an important piece.
I love that it's a step that makes you sit back and think and dream first, rather than get to the
Yeah.
next doing. Because that's the trend: is do and massage, do, and we do, and our worth is in the doing, and our professional world. But the fact that it's like, wait a minute, just think.
Yes.
Your evidence list, your dreams. That's amazing.
Yes.
That is so true.
That's amazing.
Oh, Michelle, we have to ask you, if there is a question that maybe we didn't ask that you wish we did, what is the question and how would you answer it?
That's such a good question.
Yeah.
Oh, that question. No, y'all have asked such amazing questions. I will share this just because I have a feeling someone's thinking it.
Please.
Oh, Michelle, what do you do for self-care?
Yeah.
I always pause before even kind of answering that question because I always like to say, now, what I do for self-care may be very different than what you do. Okay? Neither one of us is wrong.
Yes.
But, right? But for me, my self-care, especially as a new parent, has been sleep.
That's number one.
That has been such a need. My son is 6 months old, and he is quite literally a bundle of joy.
Yeah.
But I've noticed how impactful it has been to not get the rest that I need. And I mean, part of that is just the natural process of parenting and learning how to parent. But I was like, yo, I am showing up as my least favorite version of myself without this rest. So I'm definitely prioritizing sleep. That's a really, really big deal. What do I need to do? How do I need to arrange my schedule? What adjustments do I need to make? How do I need to ask for help? Like that has been a lot of my self-care these days in this stage of my life has been around that. But in addition to that, it's also part of my self-care practice now has been really learning my capacity now because it's very different.
Mm.
And this has been, again, a journey. I am used to doing all the things, doing them well, doing them timely. Okay. Perfectionism was a very big part of my life for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with this new role, a few new roles in my life, I'm like, wait, Shell, you can't do all them things, girl. You just can't. So it's been a practice of releasing some of the things I used to do and the way that I used to do them. And again, this is totally my journey that I'm holding on. Y'all, I've done a lot of self-work, years of self-work to get here, okay?
Yeah.
But that practice of releasing and mourning the loss of that has been very, 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 very important for my emotional health. And I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
Some practical things that I do, though, for self-care, because a lot of that has to do with my emotional stuff.
Yeah.
I love journaling. I don't have as much time to do it now, but I still love it. It's still effective. It still works for me. I love to ask myself questions like a conversation, because again, self-awareness is important.
Yeah.
I will ask myself, Michelle, how are you doing today? How's your body feeling?
Mm.
Are you okay about that?
Yeah.
What's been troubling you? Like a caring friend. That's how I do my journal prompts, and that's how I create journal prompts. So journaling and physical self-care has been so important to me these last couple of years. Okay. Learning different ways that my body can feel strong has been really, really cool. So I've been like adjusting my fitness plan. I've had experiences with nutritionists before in my past and with trainers before where I took on the student role of learning how to take care of my body. This is something I really had some I don't want to call them weaknesses, but they've been areas of growth for me. So learning how to take care of my body in a very, very well practical way is also part of my self-care.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I love that. Those are just like really like tangible and like you can see them. Like you can see these and things that I can do even with the questions, right? Like even if I'm not like out here moving and acting, like I can ask myself questions. That is still doing, right? but it's reflecting.
It
It's a doing in stillness type of thing.
Mhm.
But I love that. Oh, Michelle, you just given us so many gems.
I can hang out here for a couple more hours.
Me too.
This is
Right.
awesome.
Right. Michelle, if people want to follow you, if people want to connect with you, if people want to buy your books, where can we send them to?
Absolutely. So you can find all the good things by clicking the link in any of my social media bios. I am on Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. And you can find me at the G Michelle with 2 L's. And it's G as in good. You can literally find me in all those spaces. I love showing up and sharing awareness and tips on social media. My website is gmichelle with 2 L's.com, where I have a wealth of free resources in terms of blog articles, resources that you can use to begin your self-care practice. I have 3 different physical resources. Self-Explore, Self-Restore is my guided journal. Y'all heard us. Thank you for showing it. Y'all, if you're like, Michelle, I need a place to start in terms of self-awareness, that's where you go. If you know about self-care, but you're having trouble committing to it, having a well-rounded practice, I recommend my second book, The Self-Care Investment. And if you are a Black woman trying her best to take care of herself, but you need support doing that, please check out I Own My Magic, Self-Talk for Black Women. All 3 of these resources are available on Amazon. Again, if you click the link in my bio on social media, it'll take you there.
Yes, we will be sure to connect everyone there too.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Michelle, you have been a pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's also every time I talk with you, you're just such a your self-care, the journey that you've been on, the work that you're doing, just exudes out of you.
It does.
So just thank you.
So much light and joy. We just appreciate you.
Y'all caught me when I've been taking care of myself. This is my favorite version of myself. So thank you for validating that for me. This has been incredible. And I appreciate y'all for creating this space, because who knows who's going to hear this and how it's going to be helpful. Thank you guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.